And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon. Tonight we're joined by my guest, Rachel. Rachel, thanks for coming on here and talking to me.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I live in the mountains of Montana, and I homeschool my 4 children up here. Not a native Montanan, as most native Montanans are very proud of, but doing my best to, make them a proud transplant, because most Montanans hate, everyone else moving in to the state here. So
It has gotten a lot popular, I feel like, in the last couple of years.
yeah,
I'm going to blame that on the TV show Yellowstone.
sure. Yeah, no, it's kind of like a running joke with all the locals that just give them one winter and we'll see who actually sticks.
Yeah, I can imagine the winters aren't as nice as it looks like when you see it on everything else. Like you see the lakes and the mountains and everything, and it looks beautiful, but I imagine wintertime is probably a little more hectic than that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Where I am, we'll get like a week or two of say like -15 to -35. And luckily I can, stay inside and just tend to the kids during that time, because it's quite frigid outside.
Yeah, I don't enjoy cold weather that much. Even in Indiana, we get pretty cold, so I hate winter, but a lot of people complain about the heat too. We get really bad humidity, so it's like you can't have it one way or the other. Like it is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't like the humidity. I'm fine without that. That's for sure.
Say that yesterday, the heat index was 105 because of the humidity. I think it was only like in the lower 90s, but today has been cloudy and rainy, so it's only been in the upper 70s. So it's a pretty big difference. It was actually kind of chilly earlier.
Yeah, that makes sense. Does that usually, the hot and the humidity bring in the weather soon after where
Usually,
you are? Yeah.
yeah. So
Makes sense.
usually when it gets really humid out, oftentimes it'll cause some rain, but we've been pretty dry, honestly, for the last few weeks. So it's not that it's not needed. We definitely needed the rain.
Good.
But no, Montana is one of the states that I haven't been to that I would love to go up there and at least visit just to check it off my bucket list of one of the states that I've been to.
No, you should. It is a beautiful place.
I said I've been through. I don't know if I've been into the Dakotas, but I know I've been over Colorado and Nebraska and stuff through there. But those upper mid part of the country I haven't been into yet. I definitely want to hit those up. But you're actually a listener of the show, so I do have to say I appreciate that, because a lot of the people that I interview, I don't even know if they even listen to the show. So it's always nice to have someone that's a listener reach out. I appreciate that.
Well, yeah. I love what you've been doing. So finally got the nerve to reach out and share some of my stories.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate it. So if you are ready to get started, we can. I'll turn it over to
Mm.
you and we can get into it.
Sounds good. I've written down everything I could remember, and I think I'll start with the physical experiences and just leave like the interesting dreams towards the end because I know some people don't put a lot of weight into dreams.
Yeah, that's fine. However you want to go about it.
So the first one was what I call my near death experience. It happened when I was in high school. I was at a school dance and still had a curfew and went to a friend's house after for the last of the hour or so that I still had before having to get home. Like most kids, I overstayed, my time, and I needed to finally head out. And I was super tired, and to keep myself awake, while driving, because they were about 20 minutes from my house, I kept following the path that I needed to drive in my head, to try and tell myself, okay, we're getting closer. Once we get up to this light, we're going to take a left, those types of things. I thought that that would help me, um, help keep me going. But instead, it kind of put me in a trance and I eventually passed out, um, unfortunately, while I was driving. And the next thing I remember was my elbow slamming into the door because my car had gone to the other side of the road and I was going down into a ditch. So luckily, it wasn't a huge accident. Um, I had to realize, where I was. Middle of the night, so I had to call my parents, all that good stuff. But through the shock of everything. I was, sitting on the side of the road waiting for my parents, waiting for the tow truck. I was thinking about like what the heck just happened. What was the last thing I remember? Because I was quite a ways down the road from the last part I remember, and that afterwards I mapped it out on Google Maps. It was exactly a mile down the road. My last recollection of what I was passing. And it was also beyond a huge right hand sweeping turn. So I happened to navigate the road slightly to the left, slightly, and then a big sweeping turn to the right, and then down a hill before crossing lanes and ending up in the ditch. But what I also remembered after all this, trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life, that I had what seemed to be a dream at first of laying on my back, or I was on my back, and I was looking up at it had to have been around five humanoid figures looking down at me with this bright white light behind them. So they were silhouetted. I couldn't tell anything about them, but I could hear that they were talking. I couldn't hear what they were saying or what language they were speaking in, but I could tell that things were being said. Um, so realizing that I had that memory, I thought, oh my God, what was that a near death experience that I had just had? Um, and also, since listening to other podcasts, I wonder because I don't remember like hair, outlines of hairdos, hairstyles, or whatever. Some people have made me think if it was maybe an alien experience.
Now you said they were more like a silhouette type of a shape. Could you get like an idea of how tall they were?
No, no, I couldn't because I was laying down. I felt that they were all standing around, the upper portion of my body looking down at me. It didn't seem like they were overly tall to be looming down at me. No.
So just as far as the shapes and stuff goes, more or less just like humanoid shaped. You couldn't really make out any details or anything like that.
No, yeah, it was mainly just because of that bright white light behind them that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah.
it does sound very similar to what people have talked about with alien experiences, but I've also heard people in near-death experience report the same thing. So it, it's one of those things like I don't know. It
Exactly.
could be anything, could be nothing. Like who knows? How long ago did you say this was?
Oh, the early 2000s,
Okay,
maybe 2002.
okay. And that was the first time you had the experience of anything like that you
Yeah.
remember. What was one of the next things that you remember?
For that experience or just the next strange thing?
Well, like after the experience, like when you saw the things or whatever, do you remember waking up from that, or what was after you saw them? What
Right.
happened after?
Okay. Yeah. So then it was my elbow slamming into the door because my car was going in a ditch.
Mm,
So yeah. So I initially thought, they must have been like my ancestors, um, kind of helping me through that process that could have been deadly.
yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't experienced anything like that I'm aware of, so it's not really anything I can relate to. The only time that I've ever been involved in an accident, I wasn't the driver, and I don't remember anything like that. It was definitely something that could have killed us, but it luckily
Yeah.
didn't. But I did.
Yeah.
All I remember is telling my buddy that there was a stop sign ahead. The next thing I know, we're going through a fence and a tree.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know if we should just went through the stop sign or whatever, but it ended up being a lot worse than not stopping.
Dang.
Good times, I guess.
Yeah, the interesting things we do when we're younger.
Right. You said you had multiple of these experiences. If you want to keep on going into them.
Yeah. Let's see. So, after high school, I immediately started working in Yosemite National Park, Northern California. So I have a few interesting experiences from there. I packed mules with supplies to the High Sierra camps in the backcountry. So that experience in itself was absolutely amazing. But part of it was taking cubed, like compressed alfalfa cubes for the mules and the horses in bags up to Merced Lake. So we'd have something to feed them. We'd store it in a feed room. So we'd, bring those 50-pound bags, I think they were. And one day, the feed room has a door, and it's locked. Where my packer friend and I were unloading the bags into the room, and I'm like, "Do you like I don't know how to say this, but it feels like I can sense like a presence in that corner over there." And this room is like maybe 12 by 12. So it's not very big. Excuse me. Um and so it just turned out to be an interesting conversation with her as we're unloading bags because this is a room that's locked. You have to generally, I'd imagine, need to have a thumb to be able to open this door to access it. But at the time being in the park, I just thought, well, maybe a bear somehow got in and I'm just feeling like a presence that it left over, kind of like a residue. But the fact that I could sense that it was something tall standing on two legs. I could sense that it was brown, like a dark brown and hairy. And that's why, I was logically thinking in my head, it must be a bear somehow. Because we're not there every day. The camp helpers, we're there every day, so maybe they just hadn't told us that a bear had gotten in or something. But thinking about it now after the fact, I wonder if it was something to do with Bigfoot.
Right. That is, when you mentioned the Sierras, that's the first thing I thought of, was like you're in Bigfoot country.
Yeah.
That's where Ron Moorhead's Sierra sounds were recorded up in there.
Yeah, that is so awesome. When I hear his stories or anyone else that was like up Highway 108 and Strawberry, that's like that was my backyard for growing up.
Other areas that
But
I'd love to go to. I've been to California in the sense that I was at an airport, so I've never actually got to go around California. But I was in Oregon and Washington, right up around the state line. So I have been to Fort Hood and that whole area, and it's definitely, I understand why they call that like the Sasquatch Bigfoot area, just because it's just so vast of forest and everything. It's beautiful, it's
Mhm.
crazy, it's just, I don't know. I'd love to be back up there. Just one of those places that is just different from the cornfields that I'm used to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the granite, big trees, the stars. Yeah, it's all just so crisp and
The air
beautiful.
was different too. I don't know how to describe it for
Mm,
anyone other than the fact that when you go out there, I felt like I could breathe better.
that's awesome. It definitely doesn't have that humidity either, so that's refreshing too.
I was up there in September of
Hot.
2015.
Okay.
So it was still fairly warm, but it wasn't like
Yeah.
super hot. So it was nice and comfortable, and like there was, I don't know what it was. I just, there's something about it just felt completely different than I've ever been around. And I've been to Florida, I've been to all these other places, but like I don't know if it's because of all the trees and everything else. It's like I just felt like I could breathe better.
Yeah. I guess the trees. I would imagine the trees contribute to that.
All the trees and forests and making better oxygen, I
Mm,
guess.
yeah.
So you
I have
never,
another.
because I was gonna say
What?
when with this presence or whatever, you never actually saw anything there though. You just kind of felt like it was there, right?
Right. No, I didn't see anything. There's like I know that, or my personal opinion that Bigfoot can cloak um, now or change dimensions. At a whim. So, never really saw like any of the hazy, wavy lines or anything that people see with like the predator type cloaking. Nothing really. It was just that it was the strangest feeling. I've never had, something like that before, feeling a presence and being able to, sense kind of what it looked like.
Did anyone else ever mention anything about having something similar happen to them?
No, I don't think I told
Didn't
many
even,
other
I
people.
said, didn't even really bring it up.
No, it was just kind of like, oh, that's strange, in the moment.
Right. And at the time where you probably didn't even really know much or think about Bigfoot anyways. So
No, yeah, during that time, it was more of just a haha funny, they're probably out here, but they're not gonna be, right here where I am because that just wouldn't make sense.
off topic, not off topic. You mentioned how you think Bigfoot are interdimensional and the cloaking and everything. And I know there's a lot of diehard people out there that are straight up flesh and blood. When you first started believing in Bigfoot, did you just, were you on the flesh and blood camp like most people too?
Yeah, definitely.
There's just
I think my
there's so much weird stuff when it comes to Bigfoot that it's hard to, if there's something out there that's really out there, I don't think they could be a flesh and blood creature just because there's so much more to the experiences you hear a lot of people talk about. It's almost supernatural feeling to me.
yeah,
It's just, where are the bodies at? Where are the breeding populations at? Like, we all have cameras, we have so much technology these days, but yet we still struggle having any sort of documentation of these creatures. So why is that? There's just something weird about it. I can't explain it.
Yeah, definitely. When I'd hear experiences of people seeing it go behind a tree and just disappearing, the next logical thing was to think, well, it somehow went up the tree, and disappeared in that sense, and they're not thinking to look up the tree. But they're, being that they're such huge creatures, and not hearing them when they move, and not seeing the tree, sway at all with, a few 100 pounds or something huge and heavy in it. um my beliefs and my understanding of what they are, or what they can be at least, has definitely evolved with all the firsthand experiences I've listened over the years.
About 6 years ago now, well, a little over 5 years, I guess, is when I really started listening to podcasts. When I started to want to do my own podcast, this was during lockdown, and I was very much on the fence of if Bigfoot's real or not. But I've always liked the stories. I've always liked listening. So that's how I came across a podcast about Bigfoot, which was I didn't realize existed, but it was
Yeah,
something that I wanted to talk about. And I've come across a couple different shows, and I started hearing all these accounts. And since then, I've like, well, maybe there is more to it. And then now I lean more towards, well, I don't even think they're a flesh and blood creature. Like it's progressed over time just from hearing everyone's
yeah,
experiences about all the weird stuff that goes on when it comes to Bigfoot.
definitely. Yeah. It's incredible, the firsthand accounts that you can come across going down that Bigfoot rabbit hole, in podcasts. That's what keyed me into Dog Ben, um, and their existence, and then other things as well that we are taught don't exist. They're just in fairy tales, they're myths, they're legends, as well as things that I'd never you know even heard of.
I've always wondered, and I've said this too, like clearly the fairy tales and the stories and the old legends and myths and everything were influenced by something. Even the Native Americans, even the Europeans and all these ancient Egyptians, they've all had stories of creatures that that have evolved from different traditions from different like locations, but almost every continent that I can think of besides maybe Antarctica has some sort of a hairy man story.
Hmm.
There's been werewolves for all through Europe, and there was werewolf stories here, and like same thing with stuff, and like what influenced all that? They had to have seen something to start these stories up. So I've always wondered, like maybe these are the things that influence those stories.
Hmm.
They've always
Yeah, it
been
only
here.
makes sense.
How many? And that was probably the only time that you really experienced something out there. Do you have anything else
Um,
happen to you when you were?
yeah, I've one other experience in Yosemite, and it was another thing that we just kind of wrote off because it was something we couldn't understand, and it had to do with what people call fairy lights these days.
Mm-hmm.
So in the between the High Sierra camps, they'd have parties for specific parties. Certain times of the summer would be at certain camps. So I just happened to be, excuse me, at Merced Lake during one of the times that there was a party. I believe one of the camps 8 miles away. So after a long day of working, dinner, showered, decided, heck yeah, I want to hike 8 miles, and another 8 miles back after a party in the middle of the night. Sounds like a great idea. But, that's what you do when you're in your early 20s. So a few of us have headlamps. I think we all have headlamps because that's just what you need in the High Sierra camps. And we're just trudging along, like I said, 8 miles to get there. And there were a few people that we were supposed to meet up with on the trail. Everyone who wants to go from all of the other camps, kind of meet up and trek that direction. And we see these light blue, white lights, similar to headlamps, the light of a headlamp, um, in front of us, slightly to the right, across the way. It's pitch black, but I've never been this way, but the people that I was with knew where we were. So we're yelling, we're calling out to our friends, thinking that's logically who this is. They must have gotten lost, or they're coming in from that direction for whatever reason, and no one's calling back to us. We don't hear sounds of people. They're far enough away that we're not going to hear them, walking in the granite rocks or anything, but at least they'd hear our voices and they'd call back out. But we never heard back from anyone, so we kept walking. We'd see the lights again, and there was a few of them, so we thought it for sure was our friends or other people. And we just never heard from them. And after the party and then making our way back, and that was kind of still on our mind, we're like, that location, we were on a pretty slick, granite mountain, hill mountain. It wasn't just walking on flat land there, but where we saw the lights was even more steep. Like it wasn't a location that you would see anyone hiking through, and definitely not at night. And it's not usually a spot that you would see like rock climbers. It's just a slick rock face. So that was really something to ponder after realizing that it wasn't even a location that anyone generally would be.
I'm trying to think, like, I don't know if anyone would be out there, especially if they're climbing or anything like that, and they weren't making any calls back.
Yeah.
It seems strange for people. And this is me being kind of a skeptic in general about a lot of things, but I've often wondered how many times people are out there and they hear these noises, and some people are like, "Oh, that's just someone out there screwing around with you." Who really goes out there and does that, though?
Right. Yeah.
Like, you're just going out into the woods to hope someone happens to come out there so you can screw around with them. What happens if no one comes out there? So you just spend your whole time out there waiting for someone to come around? Like, I don't, none of that ever makes sense to me. So that's why I kind of lean towards when people hear things like, well, maybe it's not something that we recognize, maybe it's misidentification, but half the time I don't believe people are, oh, someone's just out there messing with people. I was like, no, that doesn't make any sort of sense either.
Yeah. I agree.
That's just the way I see it, because at least around here, you start going out in the woods somewhere and messing with people, you might end up getting shot. And
Right.
that's something you don't really do, is go out in the woods or go out whatever and make a bunch of noise, and then you don't even know what people are out there doing in the first place. So you might catch a stray bullet. So you never know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, in the park, that's another thing, as far as uh, guns and such. But yeah, anywhere else in the world, for sure.
Like forest, like for national parks and stuff, I get you can't go out there, but here out in the woods and hunting season, this and that, because I've heard stories from local people that I have not just talked to, like for the show, but like people I've talked to in general, claims they hear things seem weird to them or whatever. It's like an unwritten rule for most hunters. Obviously, you don't just pop shots off because you don't know what it is, but if you're out there scaring someone, you don't know how someone's going to react.
Right.
So I guess that's one of the gambles for anyone listening that wants to go out there and screw around with people. You might regret that decision sometime.
For sure.
Don't
Yeah,
be.
you don't, it's kind of like 50-50 if you think people are more scary than the things that you don't know are actually out there.
I want to hear a story sometime from a prankster that was out there trying to prank people that actually had a real encounter, and now they refuse to try and prank people because they had their own experience and realized that what they were doing isn't actually funny.
Right.
I'm sure there's someone out there that's had that.
I would imagine so. Yeah. Put the call out there.
Well, I
I
know
want to hear from you.
I know someone at one point was dressed as Bigfoot and they jumped out in front of a car and the car actually hit them and killed them. So that is something else to warn people. Don't be doing that either. Just because
Yeah, that's just dumb.
you're in a costume doesn't mean someone's not going to run you over. Again, I don't know the proper term for it other than, I guess, survival of the fittest or survival of the non-dumbest, but nature's working its way out, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what else
Well,
have
that,
you had on? I know you said you had a list and there's things you wanted to talk about. And you mentioned some dream stuff too. So I don't know what else you have far as like physical experiences besides the dream ones.
yeah. So moving right along. So after Yosemite, I started my own business and got super busy right off the bat with that. So that was awesome. But it involved staying in other people's homes while they were away, caring for their place and their animals. Um, so the next two have to do with aliens. So waking up early morning, just before dawn. So the sky is, getting brighter, lighter. You're able to see a little bit, but the sun hasn't crested the horizon yet. I absolutely love the night sky, and I really enjoy seeing the planet Venus because it's so bright. Um, and that's one of the things that I always look for in the early morning hours in Yosemite as well, catching the mules in the corral. But anyway, so I'd always look up into the sky for Venus, before the sun actually woke up. And I'm looking up, walking out to the barn, and something catches my eye that I don't usually see. It was like a cigar shaped, like silver craft. It wasn't super close, but it was close enough to see that it was cigar shaped. It was like gray. It wasn't like a dark gray, but a gray silver. And it wasn't. It was slightly turned away from me, but I could still tell the shape that it was. And so I stood there just staring at it, like, in kind of disbelief, like I'm not seeing what I think I'm seeing, but of course just staring at it to see what would happen next. And now this next part I don't know if I was just imagining what it looked like inside, the end that was closest to me, or if I somehow knew. But I could see the inside had like desk height, um I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like a desk surrounding the whole inside space with lights, different colored lights on it, and the shorter gray aliens kind of in there in that area, maybe like three of them. And like I said, I don't know if I was imagining like, oh, that's an alien spaceship, this is probably what it looks like inside, or if somehow I could sense, or if somehow I knew that's what it looked like. And I think this encounter, no, I imagine this encounter actually comes after the next big one that I want to tell you.
Okay.
Should I just jump right into that?
Yeah, that's fine. I was going to ask you a question though. Like, how far away was it?
I It's hard to say because if I knew the height that airplanes usually traveled to where you can barely see, you can make
Mm-hmm.
out that it's an airplane, I'd say slightly closer than that.
Okay, so it's up there a ways. It's not like tree line. It's high in the air.
Yeah, it's high enough that I was, staring at it to see, if it would change, as if it were an airplane, if it was, continuing on in its path, if I could finally see that it was an airplane. But no, it just, you know, it was an obvious cigar shaped. And I know people talk about a tic tac craft, and when I think about that, I think of something fatter. Like mine, the one that I
Hmm.
saw was more skinny, like a cigar shape.
I think the Tic Tacs are relatively small too, if I'm not mistaken, because I think those videos, it's like they're not much bigger than the jets that are around there.
Okay.
So I could be 100% wrong on all the Tic Tacs. I know the stuff that's been released for Tic Tacs. I thought they were more of a smaller type of sighting for a lot of the things that they've at least publicly released. I don't know of other ones that are out there, but the cigar stuff is actually interesting because those were reported back in the 1800s.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've been reported for a long time. Like they called them cylinder shaped. Well, a cylinder is like a cigar.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
there was flying machines that were reported in the 1800s. I think there was a crash somewhere. I think maybe the early 1900s, maybe. I don't know the exact place, but there's stories of a crash of something that was like a cylinder shaped, a flying cylinder. So that to me sounds like the same sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So um I stood there watching it until I could tell it kind of, I don't know if it continued to turn just slightly away from me. So it was more of like a circle rather than an obvious cigar shape. But I continued watching it until it was slowly getting farther and farther away, and then I couldn't see it anymore. That's the end of that
Hmm.
encounter.
And what happened after? Or you think happened before this one?
So what I think happened before, I think this next encounter happened before it. I think, thinking on it, that's the logical timeline. So this next encounter was like the main thing that got me jumping into, okay, this isn't just entertainment here and there of, oh yeah, this person believes in aliens or that person believes in Bigfoot. Let's listen because it's entertaining type thing. Um, let's see. So it was the evening before my 24th birthday, so my last day of being 23. I was asleep in my bed. My boyfriend at the time next to me, so it was in his house that he was renting, and I woke up for some reason. It's dark, middle of the night, but I could see that there is a tall gray alien standing at the foot of the bed. And that's definitely not something that I dream about or anything that I've ever seen before, to my knowledge. So I immediately, am like frozen in fear and thinking, because we'd go to sleep listening to Coast, and we'd have, some people may say, well, that's it right there. There's your reason. You're just dreaming, based on something that you heard that night. But no, it was definitely me waking up for some reason and seeing a tall gray alien just standing there. And um my husband is one to say, yeah, come save me, come take me from here. This earth and the people in it are not where I want to be. But I'm more of a believer of fairies, and a lover of the stories of, don't eat the food or drink the drink, because if you ever do come back, 7 years or longer will have passed, and the world that won't be the same. So all these thoughts are going through my head while I'm laying in bed, looking, looking at this tall alien sitting at the foot of my bed, because I'm thinking, well, is it here to take me? should I go with it? Because then what would I learn? What would I see? But would it be like, a fairy experience that if I do come back, when will I come back? And I didn't want to, not miss. I didn't want to miss out on any part of this, young adult life that I was living through at the time. So all these, wild thoughts are racing through my head while I'm looking at it. And I also thought like this isn't real, the usual scared kid in the bedroom because of a shadow type thing. Like I need to get up and I need to go turn on the light, but then I couldn't turn on the light of the bedroom because that would wake up my boyfriend at the time and I'd have to explain myself to him. So I wanted to turn on the light of the bathroom, but I'd have to walk past this creature, this being, and if it was real, I did not want to get that close to it. So I just laid there, not knowing what to do, and eventually passed out. Like I didn't hear, it wasn't communicating to me in any way, it didn't move. I am a believer that it can hear my thoughts. You know, so it was probably just standing there thinking like this lady's crazy. But yeah, that was the main thing that kicked my butt into gear of like, it's not just happening to other people, like it can happen to anyone and it just happened to me type thing.
Your husband was asleep at the time, so he didn't see any of this.
No, and I didn't try and wake him up or anything. I was just kind of frozen in fear, not knowing what to do.
How long was it there for before, like, it disappeared or you woke up or it was
Yeah,
just,
before I passed back out,
yeah,
oh man, I'd say minutes. I'd say I don't know, it's one of those, moments of fear that, feel like forever, but wasn't as long. But I'd say 5, 10, 10 minutes. Um, Unless my mind was racing, a lot faster than I think, because I was having, all of these thoughts run through my head of, should I go? Heck no, I don't want to go. Okay, this isn't real. All those thoughts were running through my head. So I'd say at least 5 minutes, if not more, of me just like, this isn't real. This is like, not knowing if I should give in to, why else would an alien be in my bedroom if not to take me somewhere?
right. If I was to ever wake up and I knew that I'm actually awake, and I see something like that in my room, I'm probably freaking out and it might get punched if I'm able to move. Because
Hmm.
that's apparently my go-to instinct is it's either fight or flight. And I'm always ready to fight, I guess. So,
That's good. Yeah, I didn't even try to move because, yeah, I know I didn't even try to move. So I couldn't tell you if I was able to.
I guess if there's
That
aliens listening, don't come to my room because you're going to get punched in the face.
would. Mm.
Was that the last of your actual like experience as far as like seeing things or having anything like that
Um,
before the
I,
dreams?
I've got two other. I have another one in Yosemite, and these next two, if you want to hear them, are just odd,
Yeah, go.
strange happenings. Not really cryptid or anything, but I listen to a lot of the missing 411 stuff. Um, so it just kind of goes hand in hand with odd. Um,
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, Yosemite. So like I said, I would pack mules from the valley. And I think Merced Lake was like 12 to 14 miles from the valley. So it was a long day. Um, and you're mainly by yourself. You're packing with other packers and you start out, with them, but you go at different paces and you just try to get there. You got to stop for whatever reason along the way. But I was looking at the map earlier today, and I think about 8 to 10 miles in. So I was on my way to Merced Lake. there's a slick rock area, so just granite rock face in between two aspen groves. And I suddenly see a man there, and I didn't see where he came from, but my attention is on my mules and other things. But then suddenly he was there, and he looked very much like a homeless person that you would see in a city. He didn't look like a grungy, backpacker who's been on the John Muir Trail for, a week or whatever. He had no pack on him. He, like I said, he was grungy, dirty. He looked very disheveled. He kind of looked like, a homeless person from a city. He had like layered type clothing, stuff that you wouldn't be wearing um, if you had thought about, your attire, like if you were going to backpack the trail. And then the way he was looking at me and kind of, he had this kind of leery, like keeping a distance. You keep going that direction, because he was going the opposite way of me. And I'm going to keep going this direction. We'll keep our distance and we'll pretend like nothing happened type. Not menacing, like he was up to no good,
Right.
but it was definitely an extremely odd encounter. And I watched him as I walked away the other direction, and he went off into one of the, not at a fast pace or anything, but he kept his body language, slightly turned, but in my direction, and his face in my direction until I couldn't see him anymore. And that's, I don't know, it could be a logical explanation, but it was definitely very strange.
Were you by yourself? There's,
Yes, it was me and my horse and 5 mules.
yeah, I,
Mm. Yeah, talking to the other packer that I work with afterwards about the strange guy that I saw on the trails. She didn't run into him at all.
I would be more afraid of running into people, I think, by myself out in the middle of nowhere than I would be running into like a cryptid, just because I feel like for some reason people are the ones you can't really trust. I think we are the monsters sometimes.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree.
I dabble into a lot of true crime stuff, so I just feel like all these shows I've watched and some of the things I listen to, it's just like, yeah, I think humans might be the worst monsters out there. That's just my
Hmm.
take on it.
Yep.
What was the other one you had happen to you?
So fast forward, I don't know, maybe 5 years with my own business. So California doesn't have wolves anymore. Well, they do have. So anyways, nowadays some lone wolves and maybe like a pack. I think a few years ago I saw may have expanded their radius into California, parts of California, but back oh, 14, 15 years ago, wolves weren't really a thing in California. So, anyways, I had a client who just happened to live like, I don't know, 12 miles out into the forest, and they needed someone to watch their place. And you're not going to find, a trustworthy individual with four-wheel drive and the willingness to go that far out for what they needed. So, but I really enjoyed it. It was kind of a change in scenery for me. But headed back on my way back into town, cruising down the mountain, the one-lane mountain road at a higher speed than I should have been, but just enjoying the change of scenery. Like I said, there were two what looked to be coyotes, but they were much bigger than coyotes should be, and they were so beautiful. They were so beautiful. They ran from my right across the road to my left and disappeared into the trees. And I thought, oh my God, like I felt so blessed to have witnessed, such a beautiful um, moment. But, just like any other experience, you think about it after the fact and you're like, number one, coyotes aren't that big. Number two, their muzzle and their head was much bigger than the usual long, skinny um, coyote muzzle that you see. Um, their hair was a lot fuller, a lot thicker, and it was more like a sandy brown, whereas coyotes tend to be a little bit darker brown with, the darker tipped hair. Just all these thoughts on how it most likely wasn't coyotes. And when I do see coyotes out in the wild, I usually only see one at a time. I don't think I've ever seen two together. Um, and they also weren't running scared. If they hear a vehicle coming close to them, they're running off, they're stopping at a safe distance, and they're looking back. The usual coyote behavior. These two weren't doing that. They were looking like they were having the time of their lives, running across the road, just in total bliss.
I actually just saw one, weirdly enough. I believe it was yesterday or maybe 2 days ago, but it was just running along the side of the road on the highway, and I pointed it out to my wife and kids, and you don't see, like, they're around here. I hear them all the time, but you don't usually see them in broad daylight just running out and about by itself, and it was kind of strange.
Hmm.
But we hear them
Yeah.
we hear them howling and stuff quite a bit, especially at nighttime. Usually, like, beginning of spring, they're a lot louder, and then usually in the fall they're loud again too. But for the most
Hmm.
part, I think that's just we hear a lot of the younger ones.
Yeah. At night, you hear them, all talking to each other and singing and stuff. Yeah.
I enjoy it. I like to hear them, and then sometimes they sound very close, and then I get nervous. It's like, well, I'm kind of afraid to leave this little recording barn and go inside, and hopefully the coyotes
Mhm.
aren't out here waiting for me.
Yeah, they're savage little creatures. I have the same thought. Like, I enjoy hearing them too. But I was camping last year, the same time of year, and I could hear them out in the distance. But then things started getting closer, and it was just me in the tent, and I'm like, oh no, it
I,
was not my evening enjoyment of the wildlife
right.
changed.
I don't know of any cases around here of anyone being attacked by coyotes. Usually they're very skittish, so I can't see them actually doing that. But I was like, I'd be the one that's lucky enough to be the one that gets attacked by them.
Yeah, rabid coyote
Right. Go get a bunch of shots in my stomach for rabies. Good
would
old,
not be fun.
no, doesn't sound very pleasant. So some of the dreams that you've had,
Oh, I'm not quite done though.
oh, you still got
I
more.
got I got two more because
Okay.
I told you I lived in a haunted house,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really told you what happened. So I think I want to tell you these last two things, and we'll call it good. Maybe I'll call back a different time.
Okay. That works.
So we moved into this house in 2021, and it was built in 1892. It's in now a ghost town, but it was a booming town back in the day. And this house was one of the original boarding houses. Um, so we knew we were moving into a ghost town, a place that has lots of history to it. Luckily, none of the experiences here in the house have been, anything that's scary. But we did, come prepared and, um, taking over the home with love, giving love and keeping it alive type thing. So the two experiences that I've had that are worth noting. Within the first few months of us moving in, I was sitting in my bedroom with my two kids at the time, and my husband was on the other side of the bedroom. And we were just relaxing at the end of the day, and I heard a male voice say "thank you" in my right ear. And so I looked at my husband, thinking to say, "What are you thanking me for?" And I realized, he's on the other side of the room and he's not even paying attention to me. And I heard it from back behind me in my right ear.
Did it sounded just like your husband though?
No, it didn't. It was a male. It was a male voice. So logically, I would think that it was, him.
Right.
But it was kind of. It wasn't like a whispered, creepy "thank you," but it was a quieter, "thank you." And I, knowing that this house has lots of residual
Mm-hmm.
energy, um, and possibly a spirit or two, I just took it as, appreciation, I guess.
Yeah, at least it wasn't anything menacing.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last thing, um, so like I said, it was a boarding house, but I think afterwards, or maybe even before when they first built it, it was a family with kids here. So I was down in the kitchen and looking towards the wall over the cutting board, and I had three kids at this time, and I hear a kid go running behind me from my left to my right. And so I'm thinking it's the youngest going to the bathroom. She needs help. So I call out to her and ask her, if she needed help, and I get no answer. So I go and look in the bathroom and no one's in there. And I realize that all three of my kids are upstairs. And I don't know what just ran through the kitchen behind me. It was definitely, it had the presence of something short and on
Mm-hmm.
two legs. So,
I don't know what it is, but it's just the idea of children aspects to it all creep me out more. And I don't know if that this is just like a common thing for a lot of people, but when you hear of spirits and houses haunted, you always see like the creepy little kids or anything. I don't know. That stuff just
oh,
get
100%.
it's just more that's actually like terrifying to me more so than an old creepy guy or whatever. Like the small kids for some reason is what gets me.
Oh, I'm right there with you. And I would have been more creeped out by it if I had any of those feelings in this house, but I really do feel comfortable here. So it was more interesting than creepy.
I don't get spooked too easily, so and I don't say this to try and like bring things around 'cause I definitely don't want to do any of that, but I've often wanted to experience some of the stuff that people claim that they've experienced, but I don't want to experience it here. And
Oh,
like
yeah.
the things that we have experienced, I'm not really a big fan of. So I want to go somewhere else and have someone else's experience. I don't want to. I don't want to bring it home, and I don't want anything here. So for me, it's like when it comes to paranormal stuff, I try to avoid a lot of it just because I don't want to bring things back.
Yeah. Don't want an attachment. Yeah.
So, well, it has been. Hang on one second. My air conditioner decided to kick on, so I'm gonna have to edit that out.
Mhm.
But we've been going on for close to an hour. You said you had the last two things to discuss, and the other things you can call back on for another episode. So if you want to wrap this one up, I'm good with that too.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yep. Sounds good. I'm good. I feel complete. I'm happy to have shared those things, and I look forward to seeing what your other listeners have to say about what they think on on those experiences.
Definitely. Well, Rachel, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I definitely appreciate it.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. You have a good night. If you'd like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com or go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Make sure to follow me around on all the social medias. And just remember, truth comes at a cost. Are you willing to pay the price?
I heard a story late last night about something lurking along the wood line. Huge footprints, strange lights in the sky. They claim it's nothing, but I know they lie. It's easier to laugh in my face, but something about this makes me say, what if it's real? What if they knew? What if the answers are coming from you? Spinning stories, wasting my time, hearing voices, is it all in their minds? They can call me crazy, but I just want some proof. What if it's true? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil tales pulling me in, a story that starts where the logic ends. What if it's real? What if it's true? The answers are waiting, they're waiting for you. They see a dog man walking, or maybe a mothman flies above the buried giants, hidden beneath the lies. They say it's just stories, it's all make-believe. Fairy tales for the things we can't perceive. They wanna keep us blinded, they wanna break our will. But I'm not buying it, I'm not swallowing another pill. Force-fed poison, the lies we're made to believe. What if the truth could set us free? Alien signals traveling through time, secret space programs erasing their minds. They call them crazy, but I just need some proof. What if it's true? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil tales pulling me in, a story that starts where the logic ends. What if it's real? What if it's true? The answers are waiting, they're waiting for you. They laugh, they lie, we all could die, but the signs are there if you open your eyes. Aliens, cryptids, demons, ghosts, the Nephilim too. What if it's me? Or what if it's real? What if it's real? What if it's true? What if the world's not what we knew? Tinfoil tales pulling me in, a story that starts where the logic ends. What if it's real? What if it's true? The answers are waiting, they're waiting for you. It's all in our heads, it's all in our minds. These voices can't be silenced, the truth must rise. Tinfoil tales, it's pulling me through. What if it's real? What if it's true?